Jim Brown, all-time NFL great and social activist, dead at 87. Hello everyone and welcome to this highly anticipated video discussing the last words of football legend Jim Brown, a man who made a name for himself both on and off the field. Jim Brown was a highly respected American football player who played for the Cleveland Browns from 1957 to 1965. During that time, he was one of the most dominant running backs in the NFL, breaking numerous records and setting some that still stand today. After leaving the NFL, Brown continued his success in the film industry with roles in movies such as The Dirty Dozen, 100 Rifles, and Mars Attacks. Despite a successful career, Jim Brown's last words before he died have been a mystery to many. In this video, we'll explore what those last words might have been and the impact they had on those around him. Firstly, it is important to note that Jim Brown is still alive as of the creation of this video, and so any discussion about his last words is purely speculative. However, we can still speculate on what his last words might have been based on his life achievements and how they may have impacted his overall message. Upon reflecting on his life, it's clear that Brown was focused on achieving success both on and off the field, speaking out against racism and fighting for social justice throughout his life. With that in mind, it's possible that his last words may have reflected his dedication to social change. Perhaps his last words were a call to action for future generations to continue fighting for equality and justice, or maybe they were a final message of hope and inspiration for those who'd been oppressed. Whatever his final message may have been, it is clear that Jim Brown was a man who believed in making a difference in the world and using his platform for good. Another potential theory is that Jim Brown's last words may have been more personal. As a highly respected football player, Brown was no stranger to the physical toll that the sport takes on the body. It's possible that his last words may have been a reflection on his own experiences and struggles with football-related injuries. Perhaps his last words were a call to action for athletes to prioritize their health and well-being, or maybe they were a message of love and appreciation for his friends and family. Whatever the case may be, it's clear that Jim Brown was a man who valued personal connections and relationships just as much as he valued his athletic achievements. I hope every black athlete takes the time to educate themselves about this incredible man and what he did to change all of our lives. NBA star LeBron James said, "We all stand on your shoulders, Jim Brown. If you grew up in Northeast Ohio and were black, Jim Brown was a god." As a kid who loved football, I really just thought of him as the greatest Cleveland Brown to ever play. Then I started my own journey as a professional athlete and realized what he did socially was his true greatness. When I choose to speak out, I always think about Jim Brown. I can only speak because Jim broke down those walls for me. In June 1967, Brown organized the Cleveland Summit, a meeting of the nation's top black athletes, including Bill Russell and Lou Alcindor, who later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, to support boxer Muhammad Ali's fight against serving in Vietnam. In later years, he worked to curb gang violence in LA and in 1988 founded Amer I Can, a program to help disadvantaged inner-city youth and ex-convicts. Jim Brown is a true icon of not just the Cleveland Browns, but the entire NFL, said Browns owners Dee and Jimmy Haslam. He was certainly the greatest to ever put on a Browns uniform and arguably one of the greatest players in NFL history. Jim was one of the reasons the Browns have such a tremendous fan base today. So many people grew up watching him just dominate every time he stepped into the football field, but his countless accolades on the field only tell a small part of his history. His commitment to making a positive impact for all humanity off the field is what he should also be known for. On the field, there was no one like Brown, who would just blast through would-be tacklers, refusing to let one man take him down before sprinting away from linebackers and defensive backs. He was also famous for using a stiff arm to shed defenders in the open field or push them away like they were rag dolls. "I was too young to remember Jim Brown's playing days, but I knew his legacy," said former President Barack Obama. One of the greatest football players ever, he was also an actor and activist, speaking out on civil rights and pushing other black athletes to do the same. Our thoughts are with Jim's wife, Monique, his children, and everyone who knew and admired him. Indeed, Brown was unlike any back before him, and some feel there has never been anyone better than Cleveland's incomparable number 32. At 6'2", 230 pounds, he was relentless, fighting for every yard, dragging multiple defenders along or finding holes where none seemed to exist. After Brown was tackled, he'd slowly rise and walk even more slowly back to the huddle, then dominate the defense when he got the ball again. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell offered his condolences on behalf of the league. Jim Brown was a gifted athlete, one of the most dominant players to ever step on any athletic field, but also a cultural figure who helped promote change, Goodell said. During his 9-year NFL career, which coincided with the civil rights movement here at home, he became a forerunner and role model for athletes being involved in social initiatives outside their sport. Off the field, Brown was a contentious figure. While he had a soft spot for those in need, and his generosity changed lives, he also was arrested a half dozen times, mostly on charges of hitting women. In June 1999, Brown's wife called 911, saying Brown had smashed her car with a shovel and threatened to kill her. During the trial, Monique Brown recanted. Jim Brown was acquitted of a charge of domestic threats but convicted of misdemeanor vandalism. The Los Angeles judge sentenced Brown to 6 months in jail when he refused to attend domestic violence counseling. He also feuded with Brown's coach Paul Brown and later with the team's management, although he played his entire career with Cleveland. When his playing days ended, Brown set off for Hollywood and eventually settled there. Brown advised Cleveland coach Blanton Collier of his retirement while the team was in training camp and he was on the set of The Dirty Dozen in England. Among his films were 100 Rifles, Mars Attacks, Spike Lee's He Got Game, Oliver Stone's Any Given Sunday, and a satire, I'm Gonna Get Ya Sucker, in which he parodied the blaxploitation genre. In 2002, Brown was the subject of Lee's HBO documentary Jim Brown All-American. In recent years, Brown's relationship with the Browns was inconsistent. He served as an advisor to owner Randy Lerner and was hired to counsel the team's younger players. However, in 2010, Brown parted ways with the team after having his role reduced by incoming team president Mike Holmgren. Brown felt slighted by the perceived demotion. When the club unveiled a ring of honor inside its downtown stadium, Brown didn't attend the ceremony in protest. The Browns erected a statue of Brown outside their stadium in 2016. Brown was an 8-time All-Pro and went to the Pro Bowl in each of his 9 years in the league. When Brown walked away from the game at the age of 30, he held the league's records for yards, 12,312, and touchdowns, 126. And despite his bruising style, Brown's never missed a game, playing in 118 straight. He told me, "Make sure when anyone tackles you, he remembers how much it hurts," said Hall of Fame tight end John Mackey. He lived by that philosophy, and I always followed that advice. A two-sport star at Syracuse, some say he's the best lacrosse player in NCAA history, Brown endured countless racist taunts while playing at the virtually all-white school at the time. Still, he was an All-American in both sports and lettered in basketball. Brown was the 6th overall pick of the 1957 draft, joining a team that routinely played for the title. He was the Offensive Rookie of the Year that season. Running behind an offensive line featuring Hall of Fame tackles Lou Groza and Mike McCormick, Brown set a league mark with 1,527 yards and scored 17 TDs on his way to the league's Most Outstanding Player award, a precursor to the MVP in 1958. Over the next 3 seasons, he never ran for less than 1,257 yards before picking up just 996 in 1962. He led the NFL in rushing 8 times, gaining a career best 1,863 yards in 1963. He averaged 104 yards per game, scored 106 rushing touchdowns, and averaged 5.2 yards per carry. A dangerous receiver as well, Brown finished with 262 catches for 2,499 yards and another 20 TDs. I've said many times, and I will always say, Jim Brown is the best. Hall of Fame running back Gale Sayers once said, and he will still be the best long after all his records are broken. Brown's number 32 was retired by the Browns in '71, the same year he entered the Hall of Fame, but he rarely visited Cleveland during the 1970s and 80s. He and Cleveland owner Art Modell were at odds over his sudden retirement. The two later patched up their differences and remained good friends. Brown supported Modell's decision to move Cleveland's franchise to Baltimore in 1995. It was both a reflection of his loyalty to Modell and another sign of his fierce independence. Brown was one of the few former Browns players not angry with Modell for moving the team. In conclusion, while we may never know for sure what Jim Brown's last words were, we can still reflect on the impact he had on the world, both on and off the field. His dedication to social justice, personal relationships, and self-improvement made him a true legend and an inspiration to generations to come. Thank you for watching the video, and be sure to subscribe for more content about the impact of sports and athletes on our society.